We have some breaking news as of this morning. The Jets have officially finished their offensive coordinator search. They have made a hire. They have also made a hire as their offensive line coach and run game coordinator as well. Nathaniel Hackett, formerly of the Denver Broncos head coach that seemingly crumbled and was fired before the end of the year in Denver in his lone season, has now been hired as the offensive coordinator. Keith Carter, formerly the Titans offensive line coach, is coming in for the same position with New York, as well as being their run game coordinator. There is a lot to talk about, a lot of speculation, a lot of hope for a certain veteran quarterback that Hackett is familiar with, maybe potentially swinging his way through to New York. What happens if that does end up happening? What happens if it doesn't? Matt, let's get right into it. I just want to get your initial feelings when this hire was announced earlier today. What was your first thought, and where have you kind of been able to settle as the days went on?
I don't know. As soon as I saw it, the first thing I thought was probably the first thing a lot of people thought was that, oh, this is an obvious play for Aaron Rodgers. Um, and then as the day went on, I thought it was a very underwhelming decision to go with Hackett. But then now I'm kind of content because he kind of checks all the boxes of a guy that has play calling experience, uh, a guy that has just generally experience in this league as an offensive coordinator, um, and somebody that Saleh is familiar with himself, going back to Jacksonville. Even though he said he wasn't just going to look at guys that he's friends with, but hey, here we are. Uh, and so he's got some experience. It's kind of a mixed bag of results, going back to Buffalo, to Jacksonville, to Green Bay, and then in Denver. And it's some good, uh, a good amount of bad, and a lot of great with Aaron Rodgers. But then you got to start thinking, all right, well, how much did he really help with Aaron Rodgers? He wasn't calling the plays in Green Bay. Uh, he was kind of just there helping to build the offensive game plans, which is great. I think I read somewhere that he did help with the in the red zone.
Yes.
Uh, I believe I don't if it was specifically play calling in the red zone. I'm not exactly sure. And I believe they had very good stats in the red zone. So if that could be attributed to him, then great. That is something that we poorly needed this year, because we were horrible in the red zone. We were just horrible in general in scoring. So, and I believe once he left Green Bay, they kind of fell off the cliff in the red zone.
Significantly.
So that's the sign that he actually did something to help there, and not just it wasn't just the product of Aaron Rodgers and LaFleur. So I don't know. It when it comes to who else we were looking at, it was really only Frank Reich that I really cared about as a top option. Uh, Other than Callahan, who turned us down. So I'm I'm okay with it. I'm I'm still a little underwhelmed. I think if we don't match him up with one of the top two quarterbacks, whether it's Rodgers or Carr, I think he's going to be in trouble. I mean, people point to what he was able to do with Bortles, but at the same time, he had another year with Bortles right after his great year, and that one wasn't great. So, and then he's got years in Buffalo that were also not great with the likes of EJ Manuel, and others that were not spectacular. So it's a mixed bag, like I said. I'm sure you've got some tidbits that you want to add.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned at the top, the ploy for Aaron Rodgers, I think that's where we have to start because I think
Yeah,
there is two totally different worlds for the New York Jets. One in which they acquire Aaron Rodgers specifically, one in which they acquire maybe a Derek Carr, and one in which they acquire nobody. Where I guess that's three different worlds, not two. But either way, there are multiple different options that can go from here. And I think first and foremost, you have to state the obvious is that there is a connection here. That said, we just saw what happened in Denver. And it seemed like everyone in the world thought that Rodgers was going to try and get himself traded, and the Broncos were hiring Hackett as their head coach, and it was to lure Rodgers there, and they were going to trade for Rodgers and play under Hackett, and everyone was all going to be happy. And then none of that happened. And if you are the Jets, we need to be very realistic about the quality of coach that you're getting, at least off his track record. And that's the only thing you can stand on as an offensive coordinator is your success in the NFL and how not just your statistics, but also the players you've helped develop and stay good for most of their careers, not just for 1 year. This guy has one successful year as an offensive coordinator in 6 years as a listed offensive coordinator and basically 4 or 5 as a play caller. So you have 2017 in Jacksonville. They lead the league in rushing, which is great. They had a rookie year, Leonard Fournette. It was 1,000-yard back as a rookie, played really, really well. Their offensive line was strong. I'm pretty sure they still had TJ Yeldon at the time as a complimentary back that certainly helped in their backfield. You got a better than expected year out of Blake Bortles, especially when you consider his top 2 receivers were Allen Hurns and Marquise Lee. You end up with, I believe it was the 6th overall offense in the NFL that season. End up in the AFC Championship. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars, and everybody in the world is losing their mind over their success. Well, it went to crap the year afterwards, and it led to all the coaches getting fired. Blake Bortles is not the answer at the quarterback for the Jaguars, and he never got another shot in the NFL to be a starter after that. Everything kind of implodes. Then he goes to Green Bay, where Aaron Rodgers wins 2 MVPs under him, while he isn't the one calling plays. And I think it's absolutely and totally pointless, quite honestly, to attribute any success outside of the red zone success like you talked about, Matt, which has specifically been talked about and attributed to Hackett, and we've seen the difference of him being there versus not. Outside of the red zone success, you can't contribute the overall success of the Packers offense just to Nathaniel Hackett because he was the offensive coordinator. He's not even calling the plays, and it's not like he had developed Aaron Rodgers into who Aaron Rodgers is. Aaron Rodgers was already Aaron Rodgers. So you're not adding anything to the room outside of the red zone efficiency, which is good, which is nothing to be upset about or scoff at. But I'm at the point, Matt, quite honestly, where I feel like if they do not acquire a Rodgers or a Carr, they have very little chance of this being a successful hire. And I don't think it's guaranteed if they have a Rodgers or a Carr. That's the difference. Is I'm not sitting here and saying the second they get a veteran quarterback, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to work out great. Jets are going to be in the playoffs and we're good. Who cares who our OC is? I don't think that's the deal. I think they're going to try like hell. And I think Saleh himself said it in his press conference today, which absolutely blew my mind that he would be this confident to come out and say it in January. He said, we're going to revamp our offensive line and we're going to try and get a veteran quarterback. We're going to do everything we can to acquire a veteran quarterback and we're going to fix the offensive line. And that's our plan. And we talked about it with the guys we interviewed and they're going to have a say in, where we go from here. And we're looking to do that. So they're going to swing for the fences for a Rodgers or for a Carr, or if Lamar is a possibility, I'm sure they'll inquire. They're going to try like hell to get it done. And, we talked off air, Matt, where I had said, this means Woody gave him a blank check. And they said, do whatever you have to do, get whoever you have to get. I don't care how expensive it is. Make it happen. We need to get out of this playoff drought. Saleh knows they're going to throw every egg they have in the veteran quarterback basket and try like hell to lure somebody. So if they can't do that, what is their backup plan? And you have, as it currently stands, a guy with very little track record of developing players, a very little track record of developing quarterbacks at that, where if you look at the only guys that he's really developed, you have to go all the way back to early 2010s when he was the quarterbacks coach under Doug Marrone at Syracuse and eventually the offensive coordinator as well, where he helped coach up Ryan Nassib into being an NFL draft pick. Outside of that, one good year of Blake Bortles is all you can hang your hat on. And it's really concerning for me where I'm not going to sit here and judge anything until I see it on the field. I do not think this is an Adam Gase level hire where everything is horrendous and they completely and totally got the wrong guy. But I have a lot of questions. And I think if you do not land, quite honestly, Aaron Rodgers, it kind of feels like this whole move is null and void. Yes, he's experienced. There is a positive to that. His father was also an NFL offensive coordinator and coach for a long time, was actually the Jets offensive coordinator for 4 years under Herm Edwards in the early 2000s when the Jets were making the playoffs in the early 2000s. A lot of people hate Paul Hackett, but if you look back at the history of Jets offenses since then, he's towards the top in terms of efficiency, which is kind of a statement to the state of affairs around here. All of this is to say, I'm really, really worried that the Jets are basically saying, we're going to get Hackett, we're going to trade for Aaron Rodgers, and everything is going great. And I don't know if they have any plans if that doesn't work.
Yeah, see, the fact that they, like you said, they've made it very open that they're going after a vet quarterback, and the fact that you've got the connection between Hackett and Rodgers, and you've got
And
the
Saleh
just
and
the
Matt
general
LaFleur.
need, yeah, and just the general need of a quarterback, kind of takes away all our leverage too in any kind of trade, uh, and that kind of worries me because when you have a guy that's on the verge of retirement, that's going to cost a lot if he does retire after 1 year, if his contract stays the way it is. That's very worrisome. I would want some kind of discount for that, especially in in trade value. But if they can rake us over the coals because they know we have zero leverage and that we will
Yeah.
do anything and sign a blank check for them, then that's probably what we'll do. And that really bothers me. I don't like that idea. I haven't liked the idea of doing whatever it takes to get Rodgers. I was much more of a fan of Carr. I think getting Carr allows us uh, to save on draft picks. To will probably be relatively cheaper than Rodgers, cap wise, and allow us to kind of build the depth around him, and we could have him for a longer period of time, give us more shots at a Super Bowl. Where with Rodgers, it seems like this is possibly a one and done, and that the chances of just of winning the Super Bowl with this one shot with Rodgers just seems so unlikely. You've seen countless times teams go hell or high water for talent in the offseason or a big time name at quarterback, and then they fall flat on their face. I know there's been recent success with Stafford. Even Goff has kind of turned things around with the Lions. But overall, I feel like this doesn't really help teams. And more often than not, it doesn't. It kind of ruins them.
No, more often than
Uh,
not, it costs people their jobs.
yeah, it costs people their jobs, and it costs the team uh, a near time, a near future too, with draft picks and cap. So if we get hamstrung here, and kind of abused with a trade for Rodgers, then that makes me very uneasy. Yeah, overall, the whole idea of Hackett kind of makes me uneasy because of that.
Yeah, it's very uneasy. Nothing is certain right now, and quite honestly, we aren't going to know if anything is going to happen with this in the near future until something happens with Aaron Rodgers' contract, and that's an important point to bring up. He cannot be traded until, as it stands right now, after June 1st. The Packers will accrue over $99 million in dead money if they were to trade him before then, regardless of anything else that happens. So if you are the Green Bay Packers, there's absolutely no way you are putting $99 million in 1 year of your cap space in dead money to a player that is not on your roster to trade him away for nothing because that he wants to have a trade done and keep his current contract. Absolutely not. Let alone that the extra years further down the line, 2024, 25, 26, the cap numbers on Rodgers' contract are like well over $50 million. At that point, he's going to be well into his 40s. So, are you willing to pay $55 million potentially in 2026 for a 43-year-old Aaron Rodgers? If he's even still close to being worth that money, which it's likely that he won't be. There's going to need to be a restructure for a trade to happen. There's no way that Aaron Rodgers is getting moved at all if he does not restructure his contract. If that happens, and if we get the Adam Schefter notification tweet saying Aaron Rodgers restructures his contract, frees up dead money for the Packers this year and shortens, whatever guarantee, cuts a couple of extra years off or makes them voidable or however they have to work out the contract situation to make it somewhat attractive, not only for the Packers to want to trade him, but for another team to want to acquire him. There's not going to be any movement here.
So if he reworks his contract and makes it more favorable, then that also worries me because then it also becomes slightly more favorable for the Packers to keep him as well.
And that is the ultimate kind of problem here is at the end of the day, the Packers can just say no. And Rodgers can just retire and they'll still have to pay him a bunch of money after he retires, but they're going to have to figure out however that situation is going to work out. And it's there really is all the leverage in the hands of Green Bay, where they're going to decide who he's going to be traded to. They're not going to agree to anything unless it happens. All the smoke coming out, and even Rodgers himself mentioning that a restructure is probably necessary for him to get moved. It sure seems like that's what Rodgers wants to happen, and it seems like that's what the Packers might be willing to explore doing. But nothing is set in stone right now. And as we've talked about before, Matt, like we said a few weeks ago, Derek Carr has got to be paid by the Raiders by the 15th of February. That's like 2 weeks from now, give or take. So if you are the New York Jets, are you waiting on Aaron Rodgers and potentially going to let Derek Carr pass you by, making yourself even more desperate and even more likely to have the Packers completely and totally hang you out to dry in a trade if that ends up even being a possibility? This is a really, really dicey situation. And to me, it just feels like they've put all their eggs into one basket too early. And if they don't get them all to hatch, it's going to be a really ugly situation.
Yeah, I agree. And if let's say that they do go for Carr, I don't know if I trust him with Carr. I feel like he's at his best when he has elite talent there, and I don't think he would do much to help elevate a Derek Carr back to what Derek Carr was as far as back as 2021 when he was top 5 in yards, at least top 15 or top 10 in accuracy or touchdowns. So I don't know if we get that Derek Carr with Hackett. So we also don't even know if Derek Carr even wants to come here.
No. And we don't
There's
know if we're
still
going to get 2020 and 2021 Aaron Rodgers either.
no. We really don't know what we're gonna get from anybody, and what we have to pay to get it. So all of that just leaves so many question marks all over the table, and it makes me nervous. And I'm sure it makes a lot of people nervous, but I feel like a lot of people are also kind of blinded by the connection of him and Rodgers and kind of already think it's a done deal.
Yeah.
They know that Woody really wants to get his quarterback and is willing to pay whatever it takes. Uh, and you got Sala and JD possibly on the hot seat, most likely on the hot seat. Then they need to get something done. So it's so many. There's so many balls in the air right now, and these balls are filled with gunpowder, and
Yeah.
any little spark can set them all off, all above their heads, all above our heads, because in the end, they'll be gone. They'll fire them, but we'll still be
Right.
here, and we'll be the ones having to pick up the pieces of dreams lost and opportunities not had, and and that's kind of just how it's always been as a Jets fan. So this feels like a move that is kind of on par with every other move this organization makes, and it's disappointing. We can hope for the best. We can hope that it works out. We can hope that we can get Rodgers for a favorable deal. We can hope that he still has something left in the tank. We can hope that he gets us to the playoffs. We can hope that he even gets us to the Super Bowl. But is it likely? No, probably not. Uh, and and that to hang all our hats on that happening in 1 year possibly, it just bothers me.
It's a very uneasy feeling. It is not. I'm not happy with what the Jets did today. If I had to put it in one sentence, that's what I would say. Is I am not happy with the moves they have made. I want to applaud Jets fans for a second though, because oh my God, their ability to find the positive and optimism and blindly believe it and trust it in any situation, despite how many times it has come crashing down in front of them, is incredible. And it is mainly why I love this team as much as I do, because the fan base truly is one of a kind. And to see everybody in the world be completely and totally out on Hackett when the hire was announced or the interview was announced, and everyone's saying, "Oh, we can do so much better," and this isn't going to work out. And the second the hire is announced, everyone's like, "We're getting Aaron Rodgers. This is great. Couldn't ask for anything better." I love it. I love the optimism, guys. Seriously, don't ever lose it, but don't get lost in the shuffle and don't lose reality. Let's be very realistic about what is going on here. The Jets know this is their only shot to make the playoffs this coming season because they're out of range of drafting a quarterback. They don't want to run the risk of having to develop it and not work out. They have zero faith in Zach Wilson. Zero. They have absolutely no trust that he can give them anything in 2023 and that he needs to completely and totally sit the bench and go back to school basically on how to be an NFL quarterback for an entire season before they even think about letting him touch the field. They know that their jobs are on the line. And I think, like I said earlier, Woody gave them a blank check and said, do whatever you have to do. So we mentioned this a few weeks ago when talking about Derek Carr. I'm going to say the same thing again now, Matt. Prepare yourselves for the Jets to do something very, very, very stupid and pay way too much for not only Aaron Rodgers in a trade, but money in a contract because they're desperate and everyone knows they're desperate. And the fact that they're outright coming out and saying, we are going to try and acquire a veteran quarterback in January is absolutely the craziest thing I've seen out of this team in a long time. And I'm not trying to overblow that. I cannot overstate the balls it takes from the New York Jets and Robert Saleh in January to say, yeah, we're going to get one of the few veteran quarterbacks that's actually going to be available. So you're basically saying we'll do whatever we have to do. We will pay whatever price. Packers, you want to come clean us out? We're open for business. That doesn't happen. Is it obvious to the world the Jets are going to be looking for quarterbacks? Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean teams come out and say what they're doing. That doesn't mean head coaches are going to come right out and say, this is our plan. This is what we plan to do. This is where we're going to attack. This is where we're going to improve. And we haven't even finished the playoffs yet. That is not a normal situation whatsoever. And you look around the league as a whole, every team knows every other team's needs. It's not hard. We cover the team, Matt. We do this consistently. We know their needs. We know exactly what they're going to be looking for. We could have told you it was offensive line and quarterback. It's not a secret. But that doesn't mean the teams are going to come out and say it themselves again. So I said a few weeks ago, I think Derek Carr is going to be there. If I had to bet money, I think it's going to be Derek Carr. I'm going to add a caveat with the Hackett hire, making things a little more difficult. If it's going to be Carr or Rodgers, because I think the Jets are going to pay whatever they have to get one of the two.
I feel like they have to. One thing of note is that Hackett is still being paid by Denver. He's going to be paid by Denver for the next 4 years. I think I still
not
read
anymore.
Somewhere. Not really
because the Jets gave him the job. So the offset language. This is the argument that people are making is that he had a 4-year contract or a 5-year contract with the Broncos as head coach. They fired him after 1 year. Coaching contracts are guaranteed fully, unlike NFL player contracts. So they had to pay him the remainder of that contract for however long it was, unless he got another job in the NFL. So the Jets hired him. Now the Jets will be paying whatever salary they agree for him as an offensive coordinator. The Broncos no longer have to pay the remainder of that contract out because he has another job as an offensive coordinator, and that's picking up whatever sort of salary. So the argument is that Hackett chose to come and be the Jets offensive coordinator, and he could have just sat on his couch and done nothing and still made a head coach's salary.
Which he could have, but he can't anymore. So the fact that he did take our job means that he specifically wants to get something out of this job. Yes. He wouldn't take that fat payday to just sit on the couch. He could have taken the year off.
No,
he could have waited
could have done it for only a year and then went and found another job or done something. Yeah. No, he didn't have to immediately go get another job.
So he sees this as an opportunity. He must have some idea of who he wants and who he's capable of getting and who we're capable of getting. So maybe there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't know. In fact, I guarantee there is. That alone says a lot without saying anything.
You know what that sounds like to me, Matt?
What?
Tampering.
Yeah. A little tampering here and there.
Dolphins
never
just
hurt
lost
anybody.
A first-round pick over this.
I mean, other than the Dolphins. and
Like,
anybody else that tampered and got caught.
and the
But
Dolphins just lost a first round pick over this, trying to acquire a star veteran quarterback.
yeah, see, I don't know. There's got to be some, especially with all the connections with Green Bay too. There's got to be so much back channeling. Maybe not with Rodgers himself, but maybe with the best friends of Lafleur and Saleh. Uh, there's got to be something there. There's so much unsaid, but there's also so much between the lines that's very obvious that there's got to be something.
Yeah, there's too
So
much smoke here.
there's way too much smoke. I so I am mildly optimistic because of that, but still, so much needs to swing our
Yeah.
way. And as a Jets fan, we can be optimists when we hear news like this, but at the same time, we have to be realists too. Because how many times have we been burned by these types of things
Yep.
that we on the surface look like, oh wow, we can get a Hall of Fame quarterback, but really, right underneath, you see the ugliness, the pain, and everything else that goes with being a Jets fan, and that has plagued us over the years. So, I don't know. I'm there's a thin layer of optimism that I still have, but most of it's just pessimism.
Yeah, we're in classic Jets fans fashion, remain blindly hopeful even when nothing has given you reason to do so.
Exactly.